Welcome back to this podcast, discussion, rant, whatever you want to call it, whatever you feel. I am excited to talk about episode 2 today. It's so nice that we got to get these first 2 episodes together instead of having to wait a week. Because a little bit of suspense is nice, but I think after the wait since season 1, it was nice to have a little bit more information and at least 2 episodes. So let's get started. It's Bree's birthday. We get this cool shot of them lighting one of the cake candles, which reminded me a lot of the Maddie birthday episode in Euphoria. We see Evan, Lucy, and Pippa are there, and they're all singing to Bree, and they give her some presents. Lucy and Pippa give her gift and say they're pretty sure that this is what she wished for. She takes it out of the bag, and it's an embroidered sweatshirt saying, Poussoir. So funny. I feel like when that whole joke started in the first season, I was like, was this written in the script or was this ad-libbed? Because it was so natural and funny and just like, that is so something that you and your college friends would randomly have as an inside joke. Because it also is very realistic to friends. Like you would come up with this one word and then make it your whole friendship and like just talk about it all the time. So this was such a perfect present for Bree. And the 2 girls then whip open their jackets in a synchronized style to reveal matching sweatshirts. Very fun. You can tell Bree just loves it. She says that. She puts it on right away. The sweatshirt is authentic. It's something that's personal to their relationship. It has special meaning. And Pippa's just like, Evan, take a pic. Evan's he's like fourth wheeling in this friendship trio right now. And then Evan says, okay, this is from me. He gives her this little velvet box. You just know this is going to be something really nice. She opens it. It's these long drop diamond earrings. And Bree, her reaction is just like, wow, those are so fancy. And you can tell it's not really about liking the earrings you're on. It's just like, oh my gosh, compared to the sweatshirts, like this is such an expensive and it's a gift on another level. And you know, Bree is kind of hesitant. I think there's one conversation, which there was a bit of in season 1, about the socioeconomic differences between the 2 of them, I think especially when they went to Evan's house. But there's also this plot from this season of Bree questioning Evan's behavior. Why is he acting this way? And you know, Evan, he's been saying that he's going above and beyond to show that he loves her. So I think this gift is just another sign to Bree that something seems weird and different. Even though this is a wonderful gift, it really is kind of above and beyond. Compared to the sweatshirt, it's not really personal. And, you know, Evan, he's not really thinking of that. There's kind of this miscommunication where Bree just didn't expect this kind of gift, but Evan takes it as she doesn't like it. He says, like, did you want something else? He's going to exchange them, and there's this awkward miscommunication, so Lucy and Pippa say, like, you know, we'll go somewhere else. We'll leave you to it. They kind of just nail that awkwardness and the tension that's been going on in their relationship throughout the past few months. Then Lucy and Pippa go over, and guess who they see at the bar? Leo. Pippa's like, can I tell you something? You're very attractive. And Lucy's like, what are you doing? And Pippa's like, well, we've all talked about it. And it creates this awkward moment, but also sets the stage for some flirting to go on. Their banter is just right back to where it was from the last episode. We then go back to Evan and Bree, and it's not getting any better. They keep talking about the gift, and Bree says, you know, I was just a little bit embarrassed opening it up in front of everyone. And Evan comes back and is like, well, you wanted to do the group thing. I wanted to do dinner with just the 2 of us. And it's just not going anyplace good. Evan realizes the night is probably not going to get better. It's getting weird. So he decides to leave, which is very sad, but probably a good choice for the both of them at this point. Evan leaves, and Bree looks over and sees Lucy and Pippa laughing with Leo. And it's so tough, you know, this is her birthday, and she's the one having the least amount of fun. I wish that they noticed her in this moment, but she kind of makes a good decision just to be like, I'm just gonna leave. Back at the bar, Leo is very smooth, and he puts his phone number into Lucy's phone. So this flirtation is just moving very nicely along. Bree is walking down the street, so sad. Ugh, and guess who's there when she's walking? People are always just showing up out of nowhere. It's the teacher. Bree doesn't even try to talk to him. She tries to walk by with her head down, and he notices her and is like, Bree, like, can this man get a job? Get a job. Stay away from her. He asks about her sweatshirt and what that word means, and Bree gives him an honest response. He laughs and is like, I like that, which I know it's kind of supposed to be funny, but also it's just so creepy. Like, I think it shows how the boundaries are breaking down between the two of them, how there isn't that same kind of a student-teacher formality, but they're engaging in this small talk and saying things that you probably should not say. Bree reveals that she just snuck out of her birthday party, and Oliver asks, why'd you sneak out? And they just get a little bit deeper with their conversation. He asks what happened, and then Bree says, I had a stupid fight with my boyfriend. Oliver says he had a pointless fight today too, which I wonder if that's alluding to issues in his marriage with Marianne. They talk about people listening to you without really hearing what you're saying, and it's kind of an intimate conversation, an emotionally intimate conversation. Bree asks for a cigarette. This could have been a point where Oliver said, maybe that's not a good idea, you should probably go home for the night. But he obliges. They're smoking, and then Bree asks, the earrings look dumb, don't they? And Oliver reaches his hand out and essentially caresses her ear and takes the earring out to look at it. Oh no. And he has kind of this sweet comment where he says, they don't look dumb, but I think the sweatshirt's more your style. But again, here we've not only overstepped a bit of this emotional boundary, but we've gone into the physical territory as well. Oliver then leaves to go back to the teacher's trivia night, and he says, happy birthday, and you can just tell by the look on Bree's face that means a lot to her, because her birthday night and celebration has not been ideal so far, and she hasn't really felt the love that I think she was wanting to feel on this night. Her friends were off in the corner, and then she was having the fights with Evan, so you can just tell she's in this vulnerable state, and having his approval and having that conversation with him made an impact on her. Cut to Steven. He's sitting with Evan and looking on what seems to be like Facebook, looking at photos from the birthday the night before, and he asks Evan, how was it last night? Anybody fun there? We know he knows who was there since he's looking through the photos as he's asking, but Evan doesn't know that. Evan tells him who was there, and you can tell Steven's a little bit pissed off that Lucy was there. And obviously Evan's like, I can't tell Bree who to be friends with. Those are her friends. But Steven's like, oh, it's so annoying. I break up with her and then she's everywhere. To which Evan has a good question, and he says, what are you worried about? Steven says, I just don't want her talking about me. That's all. And Evan comes back and says, what could she possibly say that's worse than the shit we already know? This is such a funny line because, number one, it's so true, and it just shows how everyone knows about Steven's true character, even Evan. And they both laugh at this comment, but there's something going on Steven's face where it's like scared about what people could find out, and also the fact that Evan said this, and there's just so much going on with his expression to that comment because we know so much behind the scenes. So here we can tell that Steven is annoyed that Lucy is still in the picture. I think he's feeling the same way that Lucy does about him, where away for the summer with Diana, he could kind of forget about everything that happened that year. But now that she's constantly around him and in his circles, it's frustrating him again. Also, Evan here asks about what happened to Steven's iPhone, and Steven lies and just says, like, oh, it got smashed, which is very interesting because you know that he pays careful attention to what information he shares versus what he hides. So I'm wondering why he wouldn't say this to Evan. I guess he doesn't want Evan to know about his true motives with what he's going to say for him and Bree's relationship. What do you think? Then, in true Steven fashion, he doesn't want Lucy around, so what is he going to do? He's going to manipulate the situation so he can make that true. He starts talking to Evan. You can see he gets kind of an idea in his head. And he says, if she's someone you want to be with, is she someone you want to be with long term? Well, then maybe you should tell her what happened. Which, in many ways, is good advice. However, this comes at a time when it's only being used to Steven's advantage. He is not saying this to be a good friend. He is saying this for his own purposes. And Steven's smart. He says, my natural impulse is to lie. But you see where that got me from last year. Steven only withholds information and will hide something for a friend when it's beneficial to him. We saw that happen last season. And, he even tries to go in Evan's head even further when he says, I don't want to freak you out, but I think she might already sense it. And even though Evan's reluctant in this scene, Steven does a pretty good job of convincing. Then we're in a dorm with the girls, and Bree is talking about what happened with Evan last night. She says he hears me without really listening to me, which is an interesting callback to her conversation the night before with Oliver, where there was a similar thing that was said. And then she reveals to Lucy and Pippa that she embarrassed herself in front of Marianne's husband. Bree says, he probably took pity on me in my poussoir sweatshirt and those earrings. And the girls are like, oh, the poussoir sweatshirt, like, that's not embarrassing. And the conversation kind of gets derailed. It's so funny. But she tells the girls, he took off the earring. And Lucy says, oh my God, you're pregnant. And Pippa says, oh my gosh, you got drunk and let a teacher take out your earring. And they're kind of just teasing her, making fun in light of the situation. But Lucy says, Bree, he was flirting with you. And Bree is like, why would he be into me? And Lucy's like, Bree. And I think she's implying you're obviously a beautiful girl. But it is a true question. This is what I've been thinking. We don't know of any kind of issue in his marriage. I know there's some theories online that he's doing this with other students, so maybe it's something with that. But it's true, even though she's a beautiful and lovely young woman, I don't really understand his motive here and why he goes after her. I guess maybe because she's so vulnerable. And then they go into this pillow fight, hitting each other on the head, saying, no, you're pregnant. That's also a moment where I'm like, was that ad-libbed? They're so silly. We then cut to Wrigley in his dorm room, and you see a girl who's getting up to leave. Diana jumps in and she's like, oh, sorry, is Steven here? Wrigley very awkwardly introduced this girl, Chloe, and then Chloe leaves. And Diana makes another little dig at the group of the freshman girls when she says, after everything Pippa put you through last year, like, I'm glad that you're out there. They have some small talk for a bit, and then Diana's like, well, I should probably go. And Wrigley's like, why? What happened? And Diana says, well, I don't want Steven to feel weird. And Wrigley's like, feel weird? And Diana says, oh, because we hooked up, and now I'm alone in this room with you. And Wrigley, you can tell he's completely forgotten about this and what happened welcome week of freshman year with Diana. They have a very awkward moment, and Wrigley asks, oh, so Steven knows about that. And Diana learns that Steven never confronted Wrigley about this. And Wrigley's like, is he mad at me? And Diana says, I don't think so. No, he was mad at me. But Wrigley's like, are you sure? And you can tell he's kind of thinking back in his brain to something. He's like, was he upset with me this whole time and didn't say anything? I'm not sure what moment he's thinking of, but it seems like maybe he's thinking back to something Steven would have said or done and why he would have done it. But Wrigley promises to Diana to not say anything to Steven about it. We'll see if that stays true. We then go to Lucy and Leo's date, and they're having that same flirty banter that they've had for this past 2 episodes. The whole Steven in the dining hall situation comes up, and in the fashion of this relationship so far, they make a nice little light joke of it. Leo says, so what did he actually do? And Lucy jokes, and they have this kind of, not dry humor, maybe it is a bit, but she just says, oh, he killed my dog. No, we dated for a few months, it was nothing. And Lucy says to Leo, what about you and Steven? And Leo's like, we dated for a few months. No, really, though. I've, kind of see him be not a great guy before. Never really liked that guy. And also, he killed my 5 dogs. No, that's a joke. Interesting here to know that Leo's clocked onto Steven's behavior and seems to know what kind of guy he is and I think wants to keep his distance, which is probably good news for Lucy. And they finally kiss, and it's very just light, fun, flirty. I think it's such a nice break for Lucy from all the drama and seriousness of last year, just to have a relationship like this that's just light. Ooh, and now we get to a tough scene. It's Bree and Evan. Evan apologizes for last night, and Bree is like, no, I apologize for last night. You're such a good boyfriend. Evan takes a beat. You can see that he's feeling that guilt, and he says, wait, I need to talk to you about something. Evan says, I think I cheated. And Bree's like, don't joke about that. That's not funny. And Evan just starts explaining what happened. Oh, and it's so tough to watch. I mean, I didn't think it would come this fast. He just had the conversation with Steven, but I guess he couldn't hold it in any longer. And Bree asks, who was it? And he says, oh, I was wasted. It was some random girl. Bree is very clearly upset with what's transpired, and she leaves. Evan's like, are you breaking up with me? And she says, I don't know. So we'll see what happens next with them. We are then with Steven in what seems like an econ class, and the teacher announces, oh, my next section's coming in. Steven turns around. Guess who is in this teacher's next session? Lucy. Steven uses information as his prime resource. And you can tell immediately as he gets this knowledge that Lucy is in the same class with this professor, he has some kind of idea, goes to the teacher and asks if he can talk to him after class. Oh, and you just know every time this man does something extra, it's something diabolical. We're then with Steven and Wrigley Wrigley kind of asks, how are you and Diana doing? All good, no drama? And you can tell he's still thinking about that conversation he had with Diana earlier. Wrigley tries to convince Steven to go out that night. You kind of get the sense that since Wrigley isn't really on the football team anymore, he's filling his time with things like partying. Ooh, and then we go back to the dorms. Pippa is comforting Bree. You can tell that she told Pippa about what happened. Lucy comes in, sees this scene, and is like, what's going on? Pippa says, Evan cheated on Bree. And, oh my gosh, Lucy has this total change in her expression. Like Grace Van Patten did this so well, where you can see all of the thoughts and emotions going through her face. She's thinking, how much does she know? When did this happen? Does she know it's me? Does she not know it's me? What did he say? She asks, did he say with who? And Bree says it was just some random girl at the end of last year. And so Lucy, there's kind of a bit of relief for her because she knows she's not going to have to release this secret now, but she still has to hide it. And so she goes over to comfort Bree. Pippa is like, we are not going to leave you alone. We are here to comfort you. We can go out with you. Like, we're going to be with you the whole time. And when she steps away, Bree turns to Lucy and is like, please go out with Pippa tonight because I cannot have her waiting for me the whole night and on me. And at first I was thinking, I understand she would want to cope with this a bit by herself, but honestly, I'm wondering if her thought already was, I want to go see Oliver tonight, and that's why she didn't want them waiting around on her. Pippa and Lucy go to this party, and they meet up with Leo there. Leo and Lucy kind of have their thing going on, so Pippa steps aside to get some drinks. And while she's by the punch bowl, this girl comes over and is like, oh, hey, you're Pippa, right? Like, aren't we in this class together? And it seems like she's hitting on her. Well, no, she's definitely hitting on her because she's like, oh, I should get your number. We should study together. And I wonder if this is foreshadowing something maybe with Pippa coming out later. I'm not sure. Something else important about this interaction is that when Pippa's over by the drinks and this girl comes over, Pippa says, do you know what's in this, in the punch bowl? And later on we see that Pippa gets very intoxicated. So there are a lot of theories around the scene and what happened. Some people were saying this girl might have put something in the punch bowl. I don't know if that fully makes sense. I mean, it's interesting because she says you're Pippa, right? So it's like she makes sure that this girl drinking from the punch bowl is Pippa. But I'm not sure if that's what we get from this scene. Let me know what you think, if there's anything else you've noticed that comes out of this scene. Lucy sees Diana across the way, so we establish that she's at the party. And then Chris comes in, and so they greet him, Chris, Lydia's brother, as a reminder, and he greets both Lucy and Pippa. Lucy's also drinking, and she makes note of saying, this is disgusting, and tells Lydia to try it. But that was also something I kept in mind. We're then back to Bree, and we see her getting ready in her room, definitely trying to make sure she looks good. And she walks over to that teacher's bar where Oliver was the night before. Bree spots him at the bar and sits down next to him, starts talking. Oliver says, I think it's pretty clear that you came here looking for me. Bree kind of denies this and they make a little joke out of it. Oliver says, what brings you here? And she says, today's the worst day I've had in a decade. And here we go into another conversation between the two of them that is very emotionally intimate. Oliver says, what do you want to drink? We're then with Steven and Wrigley as they're playing video games. They finish their game, and we get the first mention of Drew this season. Wrigley says, Drew hasn't been answering my calls. And heartless Steven suggests he just leave it, say, let him reach out to you. He's clearly not ready to talk. Not great advice, selfish advice. He wants to get rid of that whole situation from last year, so of course he wouldn't need Wrigley to be reaching out and talking to Drew. And Wrigley's like, yeah, you're probably right. I think that is just the issue with this season so far. Well, not with the season, but with the boys this season, is they keep accepting Steven's advice and taking his advice. Oh my gosh, do not listen to Steven. Wrigley makes a comment about Steven's now flip phone. And interestingly, Steven says Lucy smashed it. He's honest about what happened versus what he said to Evan. Wrigley's then the one to stir the pot a bit. And he's like, I'm surprised you let her get away with that. And I think he knows that's something that would push Steven's buttons a little bit. Even last season, I'm pretty sure I remember Wrigley saying something to Steven like, oh, it seems like you're a little bit afraid of Lucy, which definitely got him upset. And you can just tell here it triggers Steven immediately by his face. But I'm kind of surprised that Wrigley is the one stirring the pot here, and I wonder why. Why do you think he's doing that? Back at the party, Pippa and Chris are in the corner kissing, and both Lucy and Diana notice this from the other sides of the room. Lucy's talking to Leo, she looks away, and then when she looks back to that corner, Pippa and Chris are gone. The music changes and there's kind of this eerie feeling. And you don't really know why, because it seems like, oh, they probably just went off somewhere more private. Back to Bree and Oliver. At this point, it's clear that Bree has divulged what happened, and Oliver is comforting her about the situation, saying it doesn't have anything to do with you, that he cheated on you. And Oliver says, if someone's capable of doing something to one person, they're capable of doing it to anyone. And I wonder if that's something that will come up again. Bree hints at her difficult childhood and upbringing, so we're getting even closer emotionally in this relationship. We learn here that Oliver has been married before, so he's on his second marriage now, and that his first wife died. So he's divulging a lot of personal information as well. There's an interesting moment where Bree kind of tests a boundary here, and she asks about his current wife. She says, are you two just so happy together? And he says in his accent, sure. And she mimics him back and says, sure. Oliver's like, I know you came here looking for something, so let's just get to the point. And Bree takes this moment and she says, am I pretty? Do you think I'm pretty? And he's like, I think I think you're pretty. And he says, I think we both should leave. He's like, I'll call you a cab. So he finds the boundary at this point, but it's almost a little bit too late because they've already had this whole conversation and just now he's stopping it. But as they're out saying goodbye, he gives Bree a little kiss on the cheek. And then Bree starts kissing him on his cheeks, like left and right, and says it doesn't count because this is the British thing. Oliver says you're right and does it back, and thus these physical boundaries are even more encroached upon. Oliver says goodnight. Bree gets in the cab, and when she arrives, she goes right for Evan's room. She's definitely a bit confused. She has all these feelings inside, and there's kind of passion, but hatred. And I think for her, seeing Evan this night is kind of a way to take back her power a little bit and to feel that sense of power again. We then come back to the party, and I want to put another trigger warning here. There are topics of SA that come up in the show at this point. So if you don't feel comfortable with this, I'll put a timestamp below where you can skip ahead, but just wanted to give that heads up. Diana enters a random room at the party, maybe looking for a bathroom or something. And she kind of can't open the door, then looks down and notices a blanket stuffed up under it. And this might be used as a barrier, so you can't open the door or as kind of a sound muffler, but it's strange. She enters the room, looks to the left, and there's Chris. And he looks a bit shocked that she's entered and goes, oh, I was just using the bathroom. Then we look over to the bed and we see Pippa splayed out, and she's vomiting and clearly unwell. Diana immediately goes over to help Pippa and shouts at Chris to get out of there. Oh my gosh, when I first watched this scene, it was just heartbreaking. Like, it's kind of confusing, and you're going through it with Diana, which I think was really well done. Like, you're seeing the different moments within this room and trying to piece it all together and understand what's happened here. Diana gives Pippa her shirt to get her a little bit warm, and tries to get her better. Diana goes to find Lucy to seek her help as well. I think they're both in this room trying to comfort her. And when I first saw this too, like, it was just such a special moment seeing, first of all, Diana being so helpful. Because I think through a lot of the series, we only see her pitted against women and kind of tearing other women down. So seeing both her and Lucy work together to try and help Pippa was just, I don't know, it was really special and kind of interesting to see happen. They're at a vending machine trying to get Pippa some water. Diana's ID doesn't work, so then Lucy gives her hers so that she can use it. And Pippa is still out of it. They help carry Pippa back to her dorm, and Lucy asks Diana about what happened and what she saw. Diana says she saw Chris, and her and Lucy are just having this moment together, just the two of them. And we rarely see them interact this way, one-on-one, on screen. But then Diana gets a call from Steven, and you see his face light up the phone. And Lucy, I think, kind of snaps out of it and is like, you know what, I got this. You can tell Lucy is disturbed by this information and that it was Chris in that room. And she's trying to figure out what happened. And this scene is just, it is so difficult to watch. I think it's going to be a really important storyline throughout the season. We have a lot of questions at this point about what's going to happen next. And I really I feel so awful for Pippa. We wake up the next morning. I realized at this point, I think Lucy had Pippa sleep in her bed while Lucy just slept on like a chair in the corner. And she asked, how are you feeling? Pippa says, I've never been that messed up in my life. She says she doesn't really remember much at all, just kind of kissing Chris, and then it's even then a bit blurry. She apologizes and like, I'm sorry, I know that's your best friend's little brother. Lucy's like, no, that does not matter here. Pippa says her mind and her memory is essentially blank from that night. So we have to wonder if any potential roofie situation was involved. Lucy explains what Diana saw when she went into the room. And Pippa's first reaction is like, that's embarrassing. And you can tell she feels so embarrassed, which is so awful because that's the last thing you'd want her to feel is embarrassment over what happened. And after this, you can tell Pippa just does not want to talk about what happened, and she gets a bit defensive when Lucy asks. She tries to kind of brush it off, which is unfortunately very common, in a way that you can see she's trying to cope with what happened and pretend that everything is okay, even if she feels deep down that it's not. Lucy suggests maybe they talk to someone about it, and Pippa insists, no, do not tell anyone about this. Ooh, and she just, insists that she doesn't want to make it a thing, which is so tough. The scene is so tough to watch, but I think it's going to be a really important storyline for Pippa. Bree and Evan also wake up. It seems that Bree stayed the night, and she does something interesting here. She tells Evan, I can forgive you for what you did, but I have to tell you something. She says, I did the same thing. I cheated. And then watches Evan's reaction, which he does not take it well. She says, you don't think you can forgive me? And she states, if you couldn't forgive me for this, I can't forgive you for what you did. She just made this line up in order to see his reaction. That becomes it for Bree, and they officially break up. Diana's in bed, appearing distressed, thinking about what happened the night before with Pippa. She hasn't been picking up Steven's calls even. But then Steven comes in and lays down with her and doesn't say anything to Steven, so we realize here that she is likely going to keep this secret for Pippa as well. To Lucy and Leo, they are getting coffee together. Lucy gets her drink, turns around, and boom, this guy bumps into her, spilling the coffee all over him. And this guy kind of starts cursing Lucy out, calling her an idiot. And Leo goes into defense mode and is like, dude, relax. The guys keep arguing, and then Leo full on headbutts this guy. Lucy sees this happen and literally is just like, nope, not today, and turns around and leaves. Very interesting moment for her character. I think there's a lot of growth in that she sees one sign of some kind of potential toxicity, and she's like, I just can't deal with this after what I've dealt with Steven. But this also is an unfortunate scene to see because it's been going so well with Leo, and comparing him to Steven, we're so happy that Lucy has found someone so much better. And then it turns out this guy might be a little bit of a psycho too. The secrets and lies of this season have truly begun. Pippa and Bree bump into each other, and they both aren't telling each other what happened in their nights before. My heart breaks for Pippa. She looks like she has just not slept, and she has been up all night. We see her in the laundry room washing clothes, which I assume are some that she wore the night before, and I'm wondering if that will become important later on in the season, that she's washing the clothes. And at the end of this episode, we also see Lucy sitting in her class with that professor we saw earlier. And we learn what Steven went up to talk to the teacher about. The teacher says, "Welcome your new TA in this class, Steven Demarco." It never ends. Lucy literally met this man on the first day of her freshman year, and he is just like this parasitic thing reaching into every part of her life. And he has this smug look on his face in this scene. You just want to absolutely punch him. My gosh, and Lucy's face. You just cannot believe it. And then we go to Bree. She knocks on Oliver's door. We're at his office. And they begin to passionately kiss. Oh my gosh, what a second episode. These first two were such an incredible start to the season. So much has already happened. There's still so many things to be answered, but so many new questions that have started. And I am just so intrigued with what's happening with all of the characters so far. I cannot wait to see what happens in the following episode. I hope you enjoyed discussing, and please let me know below, like, if there's anything else you want to talk about or anything that you've analyzed or noticed from this episode today. Thank you for listening. Bye.